Okay, so get this right. Searching for a missing person's phone, but in Puget Sound.
Wow.
It happened, though, in the case of Cassandra Canell. And that's, well, it's not even the craziest part of this story.
You're kidding.
Today's deep dive, it's a true crime mystery, and you're gonna be guessing till the very end.
Yeah, what really gets me about this case is that it starts off feeling, like a typical missing persons case.
Hmm.
But then, oh man, it takes these twists and turns, like totally unexpected.
Yeah. Cassandra Canell, she was 33 years old from Tacoma, Washington. Super outgoing. She loved shopping, had a YouTube channel. She was even in the local Rocky Horror Picture Show cast.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we've got like her social media posts, news articles, police reports, the whole works, a whole stack of sources we're going through for this one.
So what we're going to do is, take all those sources and piece them together. We want to give you, the listener, like a clear picture, right,
Yeah.
of what we know about her disappearance and what questions are still out there.
Okay, so picture this. August 25th, 2020. Cassandra's mom, Marie, she's expecting to hear from her daughter, but nothing. Cassandra's totally silent.
Oh.
Yeah, she was supposed to meet a friend to go shopping, but she never showed up. Phone's dead, car's gone. You ever get that feeling where something is just off?
Yeah,
This was like way beyond that.
right. And so that's when it goes from, oh, maybe she's just busy to, wait, this is serious.
Right.
So her family, they contact the police, and that's when the investigation starts. They start retracing her steps, talking to her friends, just looking for any sign of where she could have gone.
And then a break.
Right.
Security footage, it catches Cassandra's white Mazda leaving her neighborhood that morning she disappeared. But after that,
Yeah.
nothing.
Boom.
Gone.
Yeah, it's like she drove straight into like a mystery novel or something.
Right.
But then technology enters the picture. Police, they managed to get a ping off of Cassandra's phone, and guess what? That ping led them straight to, well, a shoreline near Owen Beach in Puget Sound.
Hold on, wait. How do they even find a phone in Puget Sound? I mean, it's enormous.
I know, right? It's like finding a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
But that's the thing about cell phone data. It can be, like, really precise. Even though her phone was off, it had still, like, communicated with a nearby cell tower, leaving a little trace.
Yeah.
And that trace, that ping, it gave investigators a location.
So they sent in a dive team,
Yeah,
and they actually find her phone.
they did.
Talk about a long shot.
I know.
But this is what really, like, blows this whole case open and not in the way you'd expect.
Yeah, this wasn't just some lost phone. It was a major piece of evidence. And what it revealed just,
Yeah.
like, added another layer of complexity to Cassandra's disappearance.
Because here comes twist number one, right?
Yeah,
So remember how we said she was like super active on YouTube?
Yeah.
Well, Cassandra was living a secret life offline too. She was pregnant,
Oh, wow.
and she had only shared this news with her best friend, Alexandra. This wasn't like public knowledge. This was like a secret she was keeping, right?
Secret.
So now the investigation, they have to consider like all the possible reasons why someone might want to keep a pregnancy quiet, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that brings us to twist number two. Cassandra had told some friends that the father was a guy named Colin Dudley.
Okay.
So Colin and Cassandra had dated like years ago. Remember how we talked about her being in the Rocky Horror Picture Show cast?
Right.
Well, so was Colin. They were both in it together.
Got it.
But get this, at the time that Cassandra disappeared, Colin was living with another woman.
Oh, wow.
Complicated, right?
Right.
So naturally, the police go talk to Colin, and he denies everything.
Of course.
Says he barely spoke to Cassandra. They just bumped into each other at the mall once, nothing more. But Detective France Helmy, he was leading the investigation, and he had this feeling,
I get it.
like something wasn't adding up.
Right, that detective's instinct, like something's off.
Exactly. And it turns out he was right to be suspicious because remember all those questions about why her phone was found where it was?
Yeah.
Well, the data from that phone starts painting a very different picture than what Colin told police.
Ooh, interesting.
Because remember how we were talking about how precise phone data can be?
Yeah.
They start looking deeper into Cassandra's call logs, text messages, and guess what? There's this one number that just keeps popping up over and over in the months before she vanished. It's a number she's like constantly in contact with. And guess who it belonged to?
On the edge of my seat here. Who is it?
Colin.
Oh.
Doesn't really sound like limited contact, does it?
No, not at all.
This was consistent, frequent communication. And it gets even weirder when they look at how he had her saved in his phone.
Wait, he didn't have her saved as Cassandra?
Nope, not even Cassie. Colin had her saved as Velma. Remember how we mentioned that she was into costumes? It was like a reference to a Halloween costume she wore one year.
Wait, Velma from Scooby-Doo?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what's going on here? Why all this secrecy?
It does seem like he was trying to hide their relationship, especially from his live-in girlfriend.
Yeah.
And remember that security footage we mentioned?
Yeah.
The one showing Cassandra's car?
Right.
Okay, well, near where the car was last seen, there's another camera that caught footage of a man. And this guy, he's dressed head to toe in black, wearing a fedora, gloves, a mask. Super suspicious.
Oh, come on. That's like straight out of a spy movie.
I know, right?
And the police think this mystery man is.
They think it's Colin or someone connected to him.
Oh, man.
I know.
This is getting good.
But here's the thing. Even with all of this, they're still missing a crucial piece of the puzzle, right? The thing that ties it all together. You want to know the crazy thing? It comes from the most unlikely source, Cassandra's mom.
Marie.
Yeah, Marie.
What did she do?
She was going through, like, old phone bills, you know.
Yeah.
You get desperate for answers. You look everywhere. She notices this recurring number, unlisted, no name attached to it, just charges, month after month. Guess who that number belonged to?
Don't tell me. Colin.
Colin. Like thinking out of a TV show, right?
I know.
Cassandra's mom, she's just being meticulous and persistent, right?
Yeah.
And she uncovers this connection that Colin had tried so hard to hide. And it gives investigators the leverage they needed to finally get his phone records.
Oh, man.
And I bet those records didn't really help his case, did they?
I'm guessing not.
Not at all. His records confirmed that he was in contact with Cassandra right before she disappeared, totally blowing his story out of the water, that whole limited contact thing.
Yeah.
But even with all of this mounting evidence, all the inconsistencies, Colin continues to maintain he's innocent, he's sticking to his story, denies any involvement in her disappearance.
Wow.
Yeah. So we've got a missing person, a secret pregnancy, a suspicious ex-boyfriend, a whole bunch of hidden phone calls,
Yeah.
and no answers. So where do we go from here? So it's like we have all these puzzle pieces and clues, but the picture is still blurry. More questions than answers, you know?
Yeah, that's what makes this case so frustrating, but also, fascinating. It shows how, even with all our technology and investigative tools, some cases just hit a wall.
So what about Colin? The police, they suspected him so strongly. Why not arrest him?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people wondered about that. But it kind of shows you how complicated the legal system can be, Suspicion isn't enough to charge someone.
Right.
You need hard evidence, something that directly links them to the crime. And in this case, that one crucial piece of evidence, it was just missing.
What kind of evidence would they even be looking for at that point?
Well, ideally, something that puts Colin with Cassandra when she disappeared, or proves like his direct involvement in her vanishing, Could be a witness, a physical object, or even a confession. But despite all the searching, the interviews, that key piece, it just never turned up.
That's so frustrating. You'd think with all the evidence they had against Colin, the phone records, the suspicious behavior, the whole Velma thing, you'd think that'd be enough to at least charge him.
It does seem that way, right? But here's the thing about circumstantial evidence. It's definitely persuasive. It suggests a connection, but it doesn't definitively prove guilt.
Right.
And in a case like this, where someone's freedom is on the line, that burden of proof, it's got to be really high.
So even though everything pointed to Colin, without that one undeniable piece of evidence, it just wasn't enough.
Exactly. And that's what makes this case so interesting and so frustrating for those who followed it. We see the evidence, hear the stories, we form opinions, but without that solid proof, legally, the system can't move forward.
It's like being stuck and knowing something's wrong, but you can't do anything. And all this time, Cassandra's family, they have no answers, no closure.
I know, it's heartbreaking. They're just left with this uncertainty, wondering what happened. And don't forget, Cassandra was pregnant. Another life involved, a life that never got a chance.
It really adds another layer of tragedy, to an already tragic situation. It makes you wonder, if something happened, was it connected to her pregnancy? Was someone trying to, protect themselves, their reputation, maybe avoid responsibility?
These are all really important questions.
Yeah.
And the investigators, they looked into all of that. They examined every angle, not just Colin.
Right.
They dug into her finances, relationships, social media, everything, hoping to find some clue that explained her disappearance.
So did they find anything that pointed them in a different direction?
Sadly, no. The investigation, it just kept running into dead ends. They explored so many theories, foul play, maybe an accident, even the possibility that Cassandra, chose to disappear on her own,
Mm.
but they couldn't find solid evidence to back any of them up.
So we're left with a missing person, a ton of suspicious circumstances, and just a mountain of unanswered
It
questions.
is almost like a real-life ghost story, and it shows you sometimes people just vanish. Despite everything we do, technology, investigative techniques, some cases, the truth just stays hidden.
That doesn't mean we should stop looking, though, right? There's got to be someone out there, someone who knows something, some detail, anything that could break this case wide open.
Absolutely. That's why it's so important to keep these cases in the public eye. You know, talk about them, share information, keep the hope alive. Because sometimes all it takes is one person, one memory, a tiny clue, and it changes everything.
Yeah, and that could make all the difference for Cassandra's family. They deserve answers, closure, maybe, just maybe, keeping her story going. That's how we help bring them a little closer to that.
It's so important to remember, at the heart of this, there's a real person. A woman with a life, dreams, people who loved her.
Yeah.
We can't let that be forgotten.
So where do we go from here? We've talked about the facts, look at the evidence, and all the uncertainties. What does it all mean for you listening and for all of us trying to understand this really complex, really tragic case? Spending this deep dive, really getting into the weeds of Cassandra Canell's case, it's definitely left me with a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's one of those cases that just sticks with you,
Yeah.
makes you think about, well, not just what happened to Cassandra, but like bigger things, truth, justice, how we deal with not knowing.
Exactly. And I think that's what makes it so relevant to everyone, even if you've never heard of Cassandra Canell before. It's like a reminder that these mysteries, these disappearances, they're not just stories you see on TV. They're real. And they
Yeah.
could happen to anyone.
It really hits home that even with like all the ways we're connected now, technology and all that, people can still just vanish.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
And it makes you think, about safety, especially for women. I mean, we hear about these cases all the time, but Cassandra's story, it just makes it real, Makes you realize you can never be too careful.
I agree. It's like trust your gut, be aware of your surroundings, take steps to protect yourself. But beyond that, I think this case also shows us how important it is to pay attention, to notice the little things.
You're talking about Cassandra's mom, right? How she noticed that weird charge on the phone bill.
Exactly. It's easy to ignore those tiny details, think they don't matter. But in this case, it was her mom's, like her attention, her not giving up, that ended up being so important.
It just shows that sometimes the tiniest thing can make a huge difference.
Totally. And, that brings us to something else important in this whole deep dive.
Mhm.
Hope. Even though it's been years, Cassandra's family hasn't given up. They're still searching, keeping her memory alive, holding on to that belief that the truth will come out.
Yeah, it reminds you that even when things seem impossible, like when it feels like there's no way forward, we can still choose to hope. And sometimes that's all we got.
It really is. And maybe, just maybe, by talking about these stories, keeping them alive, sharing the information, that's part of how we contribute to that hope. We keep the pressure on, keep the case in people's minds. And maybe, just maybe, something clicks, Someone remembers something, a new lead comes up, and it brings some answers.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the disappearance of Cassandra Canell, I think we're all left with this kind of, I don't know, uneasy feeling. Like there's got to be more to this story than we know right now.
It's a story that pushes us to think, to question things, and to realize that some of the most, gripping mysteries are the ones that stay unsolved. We've talked about the facts, the evidence, the theories, but ultimately, it's up to you listening to come to your own conclusions. What do you think happened to Cassandra Canell?
Do some digging, explore the case yourself, see what makes sense to you. Because the truth is out there, somewhere. And maybe one day we'll finally know for sure what happened to Cassandra. Until then, her story is, well, it's a reminder that some mysteries stick around long after the news stops talking about them.